Okay, let's dive into something that feels, well, pretty complex, doesn't it? These persistent questions around powerful figures, accusations.
hmm And that idea of starting over.
Exactly. Can someone accused of misconduct really, come back? And what does that even look like these days?
Well, for this deep dive, we're looking at a whole range of sources you've gathered. We've got articles, Guardian, Airmail,
Right, and transcript from a place like E! News, Law and Crime
The
Network.
Nerve, yeah. Plus that resource from the NSVRC, the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. And what's interesting is they span a few years.
Gives us different snapshots in time.
Exactly, different angles, different layers on a really challenging topic.
So our goal here really is to pull out the key insights from all these sources. We want to help you kind of cut through the noise, understand the dynamics, the complexities.
The debates around all this allegations, reputations.
Yeah, just looking at what the sources present, trying to be impartial, and see the different facets of these stories as they've been discussed.
Right. We're just going to walk you through the information and perspectives in the materials.
Okay, so let's set the stage first. Let's rewind a bit to 2018. That was about 6 months after the first big wave of #MeToo allegations really hit the entertainment industry, right?
Yeah, according to that Guardian source from back then, the industry was definitely reeling. But there was also this very practical, maybe even a bit cynical question bubbling up.
Which was,
How soon could these guys, the ones who'd been accused, actually come back? That was the burning question, as the article put it.
wow. And the source gave examples of this thinking, didn't it? Like Charlie Rose.
Right. Fired by CBS and PBS over allegations, which he denies. But the source mentions this reported idea apparently pitched to Tina Brown for him to host an atonement TV series.
An atonement series where he interviews other accused men.
One expert in the article just called it the dumbest PR idea they'd ever heard. Straight up.
I can imagine. And Mario Batali, the chef.
Him too. Took a leave after his own accusations of inappropriate, abusive behavior. But The Guardian reported he was already kind of eyeing a second act, pondering timelines.
Even thinking about creating a new company led by a woman CEO.
Yeah, that was floated as an idea, according to the source. Complex optics, like you said.
And the article mentioned others too, didn't it? Matt Lauer, Louis C.K.
Harrison Keeler as well. All reportedly looking for redemption or trying to get their career train back on track, as the source phrases it.
So it sounds like the crisis PR firms must have been busy.
Oh, absolutely. The source notes business was booming for them. They were advising on responses, trying to protect images, and yeah, definitely plotting potential recovery strategies.
So based on what those PR folks were saying back then in the Guardian piece, what were the key factors? Like what made a comeback seem possible or impossible?
Well, the sources suggest two main things they looked at: how severe the alleged offense was,
Right.
and whether there seemed to be a pattern, multiple accusations versus maybe a single incident.
So for some, it was just off the table.
Pretty much. The experts cited felt that for certain people, like Harvey Weinstein, who was facing rape charges, then there just wasn't going to be a comeback. Bill Cosby was also mentioned as having been convicted.
But the Guardian piece also talked about this. This vast gray area.
Yeah.
Right. Behavior that wasn't maybe criminal legally, but still unacceptable.
Exactly. And for those individuals, the real judgment wasn't going to come from a courtroom. It was going to come from the court of public opinion. That's the term the source used.
And that could be even tougher.
That's what one lawyer quoted, actually. Weinstein's lawyer at the time seemed to think they felt that forum could be harsher than a court of law, especially with social media.
Things spread so fast.
Right. And declarations of innocence could actually backfire, making due process seem, I guess, unpopular.
The Guardian article used Mel Gibson as a sort of case study, didn't it? For a comeback attempt after his 2006 incident.
Yeah, arguing it might represent the best case scenario for someone trying that. His path involved, remorseful interviews, directing a hit film like Hacksaw Ridge.
Getting Oscar nominations.
Being gradually let back into some elite circles. But the source stresses this took about 10 years.
And even then, it wasn't like he got his old status back entirely.
Not at all. The source points out he didn't regain that superstar level. The memory stuck around. Plus, his situation, the nature of his tirade, was different from the sexual misconduct allegations others faced.
So the takeaway seemed to be real contrition, taking responsibility, that was seen as essential.
Absolutely necessary, yeah, before even thinking about re-entry.
And the article concluded that the old rules weren't working, the old PR playbook.
Right. The comeback playbooks are being rewritten, it said. Those old PR trial balloons trying to test the waters, they weren't landing well. And critics, like the writer Jill Filipovich mentioned, were arguing these men shouldn't be plotting comebacks anyway.
Their focus should be elsewhere.
Yeah, on genuinely making amends. Because losing your celebrity status, that's not the same as actually being penitent. That's a really key tension highlighted in that 2018 piece.
Okay, that sets the scene from a few years back. Now let's jump forward. Let's get into some of the more recent cases and discussions in the sources, starting with Jared Leto. This draws on that airmail exclusive and the talks on E! News The Nerve from June 2025.
Okay. So the main thing reported across these sources is that he's facing accusations of impropriety from 9 women.
9. And airmail and The Nerve specifically mentioned some were allegedly underage when the interactions started.
That's the reporting, yes.
Right.
Which obviously raises the stakes considerably.
The sources detail some specific allegations too, like DJ Ali Teal's.
She alleged an assault back in 2012 when she was 17. The source quotes her describing it as predatory, terrifying, and unacceptable.
And Leto's response.
His rep, according to E! News, called her claim demonstrably false.
And there was another accuser named Laura LaRue.
Yes. She alleged meeting him when she was 16 in 2008, exchanging emails, visiting his studio, seeing him naked when she was 17.
What did his team say about that?
Airmail reports his rep said their communications had nothing sexual or inappropriate and claimed she'd applied to be his personal assistant. But LaRue, the source says, denies ever applying for that job.
And beyond those two, airmail mentions 7 other women accusing him of impropriety, again with some allegedly underage.
That's what was reported. And across the board, through his rep, Jared Leto has denied any wrongdoing and expressly denied all allegations.
Now, the Nerve source seemed to dig into the context around these allegations more.
It did. It included this assertion that Leto allegedly likes very young girls, teenage girls, and causes them a lot of pain in having sex, alleging violence.
Wow. And they claim this wasn't new information.
The source claims this has been the line on him, and, quote, everybody's known this for years. They even cite a former Page 6 editor who worked there from 1999 to 2009 saying that.
That idea of everybody knowing, it really connects to what the NSVRC resource talks about later, doesn't it? About perpetrators hiding in plain sight.
It absolutely does. And the Nerve piece also brought up his alleged behavior on the set of Suicide Squad.
Ah, the gifts.
Yeah. Reporting that he sent things like rats, bullets, a dead hog, anal beads, used condoms, sticky Playboy magazines to his castmates' trailers.
And his explanation for that was?
According to the Nerve's reporting, he called it method acting, said it was to create a dynamic surprise, spontaneity, break down walls.
Quoting him saying the Joker doesn't respect personal space or boundaries.
Right. That was the justification reported.
How did co-stars react, according to the source?
Well, it mentions Will Smith saying Leto went full Joker, and it describes Margot Robbie appearing, quote, afraid to say anything in interviews, suggesting she might have feared upsetting him or hurting her career.
Which again echoes that NSVRC point about bystanders sometimes enabling things out of fear.
Exactly. It connects. The Nerve source also talks about the whole cult of Jared Leto thing, specifically that Mars Island event in 2019.
Right. The band called it a spiritual retreat, but a magazine called it the cult of Jared Leto.
And the source mentions details like fans, many young women, some paying thousands of dollars meditating with him dressed like a guru, the band using the hashtag Mars Island hashtag.
What was the Nerve's take on that?
They described it as a creepy cult guru wannabe gathering, suggesting it mostly involved young or maybe immature women, claiming any mature woman's creepo-meter goes off near him.
That's quite a statement.
It is. And the source also claims his band, 30 Seconds to Mars, has allegedly been used as a, quote, delivery system for more young groupies.
So the picture painted by these sources on Leto is... it's pretty intense. Long-standing rumors, these specific allegations, the method acting defense, the fan dynamics.
And that claim from the Nerve about institutionalized protection in Hollywood, it raises big questions about fame, power, and potential enablement, echoing that NSVRC point about celebrities maybe feeling entitled.
Okay, let's shift now to the allegations against Russell Brand, as covered in the Law and Crime Network source.
Right. So the context here is that these sexual assault allegations against Brand are making headlines again. Canadian prosecutors are reportedly weighing charges based on a police file.
And London's Met Police have interviewed him.
Multiple times, according to the source.
And these allegations, they go back a ways.
Yeah, the period discussed is 2006 to 2013, which was really the peak of his fame.
What brought them back into the spotlight now?
According to the source, it was kicked off by 4 women coming forward after a joint investigation by a UK newspaper. They alleged rape, sexual assault, and emotional abuse.
The source went into specifics on some of these.
It did. There's Alice, who alleged a relationship starting in 2006 when she was 16 and he was 30. She claimed her mom told her to tell Brand her age.
And the UK age of consent is 16, so the mother didn't intervene further.
That's what was reported. Alice alleged Brand coached her to lie to her parents, sent a car for her from school, told her to use a fake name for him, Carly.
And she alleged assault.
Yes, forced oral sex, being pinned down, choked. She said she broke up with him after that.
And there was another one mentioned, Nadia.
Right. She alleged a violent encounter at his home in 2012, claimed he tried to get her to have sex with a friend. She refused. Then, she alleged, he cornered her against a wall and raped her.
And she got away.
She said she escaped. And she texted him afterwards, when a girl says no, it means no. He reportedly replied saying he was very sorry.
How has Russell Brand responded to all this, according to the source?
He's denied all the allegations. The Law and Crime source notes he went on YouTube called the claims astonishing, rather baroque attacks that he absolutely refutes. He maintains his relationships have always been consensual.
The source also included some legal analysis, right?
Right.
From an attorney.
Yes, Krista Rye. She offered some interesting points. First, that allegations like these are just being taken more seriously now. A reckoning since #MeToo, she called it.
But hard to prosecute.
Often, yes. But she pointed out victims frequently confide in others or save evidence, leaving a kind of footprint.
What about the age issue with Alice, 16 in the UK?
The analyst noted that if the age of consent is 16 and the relationship was legally consensual, it might not be criminal in the UK. But, she stressed, public opinion is a whole different ballgame, which brings us back to that gray area idea.
And the analyst mentioned Brand's own memoir, where he talked about sex addiction.
Yeah, this was a fascinating point. The analyst suggested that admission actually helps these women in their allegations. Because, she argued, it shows a puissant nature, a deviant side, maybe a lack of self-control. It could support the idea that he might feel entitled to, quote, take whatever I want because I'm Russell Brand.
That's a strong interpretation. The analyst also tackled that common question, didn't she? Why wait so long to report?
She did, and it's really important. She explained it from a trauma-informed perspective. Sexual assault is trauma. Victims deal with intense shame and guilt, asking themselves, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong?
Plus the fear of being blamed.
Exactly. Victim blaming is huge. Healing takes time, and survivors need to speak when they are ready. She also mentioned anonymity, like using DOE plaintiffs, is sometimes vital for due process. This lines up perfectly with the NSVRC points on barriers and trauma responses.
Did the analyst see a shift since #MeToo?
Definitely. She talked about prosecutors taking claims more seriously, that feeling of time's up. Yeah. Powerful people losing their protectors. She mentioned P. Diddy as an example. And just renewed attention on older cases.
And this shift empowers survivors.
That was the message from the analysis and the source, yeah. Knowing that past events are being taken seriously can make a difference.
So the Brand situation, as the source presents it, really highlights that ongoing tension. Investigations, denials, the complexity of trauma and reporting, all against this backdrop of a post-#MeToo landscape.
It ties a lot of threads together.
And all these specific examples, Rose and Batali back in 2018, Leto and Brand more recently, they really seem to illustrate those broader points from the NSVRC resource about how we understand these celebrity cases and how the public reacts.
Absolutely. The NSVRC source directly addresses those common biases, how people often instinctively defend the celebrity or doubt the accuser because it's hard to reconcile the admired public persona with the alleged private actions.
It challenges the idea that perpetrators look a certain way.
Totally. The NSVRC material is crystal clear. There's no look. Perpetrators can be charming, successful, seem moral. Success doesn't equal good character. They often hide in plain sight.
And are often known by the victim.
Yes, that's key. Acquaintances, partners, not just strangers. Which is why, the resource suggests, our intuition based on a public image is often unreliable. We only see one side.
The NSVRC also stresses the motivation, right? Power, not sex.
Exactly. It's about asserting dominance, affirming or diminishing power. And the resource suggests celebrities might feel especially entitled because of their status or confident they won't face consequences. Connects right back to the analyst's point on Brand.
And the barriers for survivors coming forward. The NSVRC really lays those out.
It does. The huge personal, professional, financial costs. It corrects that myth about a big lawsuit payout compensation is for actual costs. Victims might even owe legal fees, and the trauma being forever memorialized online.
And it pushes back hard on the idea of false accusations being common.
Very hard. It states false accusations are very rare. And that powerful point, no one makes a name for themselves by being sexually assaulted. It brings stigma and shame, not fame.
Which helps explain why someone might not report immediately or might act normal.
Precisely. The NSVRC calls those common trauma responses: fear, numbness, denial, dissociation, fear of retaliation. And victims, especially vulnerable ones like minors, might fear they won't be believed. It also mentions bystander complicity due to fear, citing Weinstein again.
The resource is also quite blunt about the justice system's limits.
Yeah, it makes the point that not being charged or being found not guilty doesn't automatically mean it didn't happen. It cites the statistic that less than 1% of rapes lead to felony convictions. The system is flawed, and not all victims even engage with it.
Which is crucial context for cases like Brand's, where there's denial and ongoing investigation, but no charges yet.
Absolutely. Legal outcomes aren't the whole story.
And finally, the impact of public opinion. Online comments. The NSVRC connects that directly to silencing victims.
It argues societal biases fuel shame and silence. Victim blaming online doesn't just hurt that survivor. It signals to all potential survivors that they won't be believed, that they might face abuse.
Reinforcing their fears.
Exactly. The source says it reproduces rape culture and tells abusers they'll likely be defended. It really brings us full circle to that court of public opinion idea from the Guardian source, but highlights its damaging effects.
So when you piece together everything from these sources, you see this ongoing story. Comeback attempts, industry dynamics that might enable or protect people.
And the huge, often invisible challenges for those who come forward with allegations.
And it feels like, while that 2018 question was about how soon men could return,
Right.
the sources across the years also show this shift. Maybe slow, maybe uneven, but a shift towards taking allegations more seriously. That time's up message seems to be having some impact, at least in the discourse.
It does seem that way, based on the discussions in the later sources.
Oh, this deep dive definitely paints a complex picture. All these tensions, allegations versus denials, the legal system versus public opinion, celebrity power versus survivor experiences.
Yeah, it's a lot. We've really just tried to lay out the information and the different viewpoints presented in these sources for you.
So, as you process all this, here's something to maybe mull over, drawing from what we've discussed. If the NSVRC source tells us our gut feeling about a celebrity's character can be unreliable because we only see the public image, and the other sources highlight the power and potential pitfalls of the court of public opinion, what then is the public's role in evaluating serious allegations in a way that's actually responsible and fair?
That's a heavy question to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.